I think this loneliness epidemic that we're seeing currently is going to get worse. I see the marriage rates plummeting. People are living together way more often. They're having casual sex.
Don't you want somebody to love when you're lonely? Don't you want somebody to lighten your load?
Hey everybody, this is The Thoughtful Husband, and today I'm talking about toxic prosperity. Well, what is toxic prosperity? Well, seems like every other term has the word toxic before it, and people go with it, so I guess why not me do it as well, right? Well, I think we know, right? We're prosperous. We are as prosperous as any other nation, any other country, any other people on earth have ever been since there's been people. And what has it done to us? Are we living the Star Trek utopia? I remember there's this utopia that was put out there, right? Like, we're going to be prosperous. We won't have to worry about our survival needs. We will go on a giant adventure and explore the universe, and everybody will be taken care of, and we'll just have so much curiosity and love for humankind. How many of you think that we're headed that direction right now, just based on how things are currently going? I, for one, don't. I'm not a cynic, I don't think. I'm just looking around at the world, and I see how things are going. And there's this toxicity that seems to be happening with our prosperity. We're not using our prosperity for good. We're using it for, I guess, selfish reasons. We have enough, and then what do we do when we have enough? Seems like we just go get more. Look at all the people that we know. I know this is kind of a trope, but watch all those people who win the lottery. What happens in a few years? They lose everything. They lose everything. What about all those football players who win the Super Bowl? They often get depressed the next day. Why? Well, because freedom, prosperity, excess without purpose, without discipline, leads to meaninglessness and despair. That's the problem. The prosperity is not the problem. The problem is we don't know what to do with prosperity. And sometimes it's killing us. What happens when you give a drug addict a bunch of money? They end up in the ditch. I especially see this with high school students and young adults. It's like they're just not motivated. You know why? Because they've never felt scarcity their entire frickin' life. Not a single meal that's missed, except for the ones that they wanted to miss. They always had clothes on their back, never been a part of a war. Why should they be motivated? Why should they be disciplined? Give me a good reason. I can't. I often tell this to my young man. I say, hey, give a young man porn, video games, and Taco Bell, and he doesn't have a reason to leave his room. And I think that stands up. All of his reward structures, all of his incentives that nature put within him aren't there. They've all been satisfied. Why would you give me a medal and then tell me to run the race? Why would you? Give me the medal and I'll just go home. I don't need to run that damn race. I don't. I think this is part of the problem that we're dealing with. And it's also affecting modern relationships in ways that I don't think we could have anticipated. One of the things about modern relationships and how prosperity has affected it is, well, we just don't need family anymore. I think that's part of it. We don't need family anymore, at least not like we used to. How common is it for people in the West to go and travel hundreds and thousands of miles to go pursue career, to go pursue education? It's really common. There are a lot of families that are dispersed all throughout the country and even the world. Well, what has that done to family, and what has that done to relationships? Suddenly we're in a place of isolation that's not our community, and we're meeting all kinds of people who are, at least at the moment, strangers that we know nothing about, and we're so disconnected. But we have our wealth, we have our money, we have our health, we're living longer. Well, it means that also we don't have to have family relationships. We don't have to have marriage. We have money. We have technology. We can take care of ourselves. Sometimes we can even rely on the government if things go south. So there isn't that natural incentive to participate in family and make it work and get married and make sure you're doing it on purpose and make sure you're doing it right. There isn't that natural incentive because we don't need to. There's not that survival instinct that's driving us towards staying married like it used to be. I also think that people, especially young people, they're putting their careers as the primary motivator for their young life. It's very common, men and women now, their 20s through their 30s, all spend on career education. Well, and that's when ladies used to be having a lot of babies. It's when they're healthiest. It's when their fertility is highest. And boy, you start entering the dating market age 30, 34, 35. You know what they call pregnancy at age 35? They call it a geriatric pregnancy. And it's rough. I don't like it. This is just the way that human beings are designed. Ladies really have to get the major pieces of their life put together before really age 30, really age 35 especially. Boy, if you haven't by age 40, it's going to be rough and it might be lonely for you. And it's a little bit more forgiving with guys, but not in their 20s. Boy, guys really struggle in their 20s. It's not really until age 30 that I usually see young men really get it together, find themselves in the world, create a career, really start feeling confident in who they are and what they're made of. And then maybe they start looking for relationship. They start looking for family, maybe. Well, our prosperity has really taken away the impetus for us to get it together soon. Some people even call it extended adolescence. We're like children. We're just kind of playing around until life kind of smacks us in the face at age 30. And it isn't our survival needs that are perking up. It's our loneliness. It's our sense that maybe there's something more out there, that we need to create a community maybe before we die or before we really need it. I think this loneliness epidemic that we're seeing currently is going to get worse. I see the marriage rates plummeting. People are living together way more often. They're having casual sex. They're not even doing relationships in a very productive or very thoughtful way. And I think that's going to increase the rates of loneliness, depression, anxiety, isolation. I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But what kind of effects has this had on women? I think one of the good things that prosperity and technology have really given women is they've given them more of a sense of autonomy, and they can leave bad relationships as well. But the problem is they can also leave mediocre relationships pretty easily as well, without much pushback. Why? Because they can. Because they don't need a provider male like they used to. They can provide for themselves. And so I think along with that goes a fair amount of respect. It's not very often that you see ladies just go, wow, my husband works so hard, he's got a job. How often do husbands and boyfriends and provider types, how often do they hear appreciation from the people who are living off of the amount of money created by that job? How often does that happen? And also, and maybe you can correct me in the comments if I'm misplacing this, but as far as women is coming, and a lot of times they're even out-earning men, I still have yet to see a single woman say, man, I need to go and educate myself and build a career so that I can support a husband and a family. I have yet to hear that even once. Actually, the statistics say that when the wife gets a raise or she makes a significant amount more than her husband, divorce rates go up even further. And we know this from the statistics that ladies are leaving marriages. They're the ones filing for divorces 70% of the time, and college-educated ones 90% of the time. So it's giving them the ability to leave, but a lot of times I think they're leaving too soon. Furthermore, I think that the casual sex created by the sexual revolution is really making it so that ladies are more exposed to trauma and poor relationships, poor dating experiences as well. And so we know also from the amount of sexual partners that women have, the more sexual partners they have, the less likely it is that they're going to pair bond with a long-term mate. And the less likely it is going to be that they'll have a successful, happy relationship. We know this. And that doesn't seem to be stopping anyone from, say, saving yourself until marriage, or really just doing relationships not for reasons of pleasure, but for reasons of purpose and meaning. I think we're also finding out how little people loved each other, how little people, especially married people, really loved each other, and how much they stayed together because they had to. And I know lots of married couples who probably would have been divorced had they been a little younger, but who really strove and fought through it and grew as married couples, and now they have wonderful marriages. And I wonder how many of the young people are going to miss out on that because they gave up too soon. Because they could. Because they were financially independent. They didn't need to be married. And they didn't need to have families. And so they gave up too soon when maybe there was something better for them had they just tried a little harder, got a counselor, did some work, I have ample examples of that. And if they had been given the right tools, or perhaps gone to it with a different mentality, become more thoughtful, put in the same amount of dedication into their relationships as they would their careers, I think things would have turned out much better for them. Well, what has this prosperity done to the men? I think men are finding out that the traditional path of marriage just doesn't work. Now, it used to be you educate yourself, you build a career, you do an apprenticeship, and then you're financially stable, and then you enter the dating market and go find a woman to start a family with. You impress her father, you do the traditional courtship, you learn how to be a gentleman. How much of that is happening lately? Because you don't need to. The hookup culture has destroyed this. You don't need to. Why would you put in all that effort for a woman who's 70 to 90% of the time going to leave you if there's a divorce? Right? And the divorce courts are not kind to you. Why would you put in all that effort and devote your life path to that one pursuit of a goal, only to have a significant chance that it's going to fail? So I think guys they're not having it. They think marriage is stupid. I think also the access to cheap sex and porn is really hurting guys. They have options now. Guys have always had strong biological drives to go pursue beautiful women and to make love to them. Something that drives us every single day. And it's hard to manage. It's hard to manage for pretty much every man. He's got to channel it. He's got to do something with it. Well, now we have outlets. Now we don't have to channel that drive towards building nations and building cities and building civilizations. Now it's just there, and we don't have to work that hard for it. But let me ask you this question, right? What happens when sex is cheap and marriage is expensive and risky? I think we have a lot of short-term hookups. You know that phrase, why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? I always thought that was pretty stupid. I think the more apt thing to say is, why would I buy the car if I can test drive it for a few years? If I could just lease it for a little while and then give it back, and then maybe try another car. And the cost is a lot less, and the risk is a lot less, and I don't really have to work to maintain it. I'll just give it back to the dealer and they'll do it. Right? I think this is kind of what women feel like. They're feeling like they're being test drove, but no one will ever purchase them and help maintain a lifestyle with them. It's something that a lot of ladies are experiencing now. Finally, I think men are starting to really feel like they're just disposable. Their roles as providers have really been challenged, so what's left for them? Selfish pursuits? Random hookups? I think this is one of the reasons why guys like Andrew Tate and some of the other guys are popular on the internet. They're trying to give men a path, and it's normally like, we need to go back into tradition. Good luck. I don't think we're going back. I really don't think we're going back. But I understand. It would be nice if we had a path. It would be nice if we had a way forward that you could just tell men, do this, do this, do this, do this. It'll all work out. And society is supporting you, and we're going to make sure it happens. I don't think that exists. I really don't think that exists right now. So I understand why men are upset. I understand why men are struggling with issues of purpose and meaning. I understand that. But I think there's a better way. I think the answer to toxic prosperity is going to be found in taking the prosperity that we have and using it with purpose, channeling it for the greater good. I think first of all, we need to pursue excellence and not comfort. And this is hard because I think this takes a bit of a frame of mind. You have to understand what happiness is and where it truly comes from. It doesn't come from the momentary comforts. It doesn't come from consuming things. It doesn't come from the short-term plans that may make things a little bit easier here and now. I think it comes from building a legacy. I think it comes from pursuing excellence. I think it comes from love. I think it comes from community. And I know this because I see all of the people who are the happiest. They're often not the most rich. They're often not the most prosperous. They're often the ones who are well-connected, who have a lot of love in their lives, who dedicate themselves first and foremost to family and community. And then prosperity is just something that serves that. It's not something to pursue in and of itself. It's something that serves the needs of the community, that serves the needs of the family. I think once that happens, it's no longer toxic anymore. I think men and women need to learn sexual discipline. And I'm not saying this out of a place of shame. I'm saying sex is probably the most dangerous thing that any human being can do, both male and female. And we should proceed with caution. We should put exactly, or maybe even more, thought and attention into our romantic relationships than we do our careers. How many people do you know that are great communicators at work, suck at communication in their marriage? How many people do you know that are just diligent? They have to-do lists, they have checklists, they have all kinds of tools that they use at their job. They come home and they sit on the couch and use none of it. Right? Why don't we become professional husbands, professional wives? Why don't we take all of the things that we have, all of the YouTube resources, all of the books, all of the money, and channel it into loving each other, and channel it into creating better communities rather than dividing us and creating a sense of isolation? Why don't we do that? Finally, I'll say, and I guess I'm repeating myself a bit, but I think we need to channel our lives. We need to devote ourselves to love and community. This is true of pretty much every single religious text. They will put love and community at the top. Not just moral excellence, not wealth. It's love and community. Those seem to be the highest virtues. Right? Love your Lord, thy God, with all their heart, thy soul, and your mind, and love your neighbor as thyself. That's an organizing principle. That is a statement of what matters most in the world. And boy, I don't care how prosperous you are. If you follow that one, you're probably going to do fine. Rich Cooper says, pursue excellence, not women. Amen to that. But when I think about excellence, I don't think it means just being the top dog all the time, getting the fanciest car. Those are nice in the moment, right? Not going to matter as much when you're 80 and lonely. Not going to matter as much. I think you got to build something that's going to last and is going to last beyond your years, and is something you're going to improve the community around you and the people that you love. So I'll leave you with this. If you want to fight toxic prosperity, if you want to make a prosperity work for you, not against you and your happiness, then just get enough to survive. Just get enough to survive, pursue excellence, and then use the rest to love your family, to love your community, to uplift the poor, to benefit those around you. I think you'll find that when you fill your heart with love, people will love you back. When you fill your heart with love and you use your prosperity towards that aim, you won't have any regrets. And instead of depression and anxiety, I think you'll feel a sense of joy, a sense of purpose, like what you do actually matters. I'm the Thoughtful Husband, and I hope I'll help you today. And I challenge you, if you're prosperous, use it, be glad. Use it for good. Use it for love. Take care, everyone.
Don't you want somebody to figure you out?